Hello and welcome to What the Luxe with me, Fred Moore.
And me, Anand Sharma.
Together we lead Matter of Form, a design consultancy specialising in brand, digital experience and content. And this is a podcast that calls time on tired ideas of luxury.
Alongside industry luminaries and thought leaders, we explore what truly defines category-leading products and services.
As founder and editor-in-chief of Gentleman's Journal, Harry Jarman has spent the past decade and then some redefining the worlds of luxury and print, transforming the title from a startup in a spare room to an established and sought-after media brand. Today, Gentleman's Journal is a leading title dedicated to men's luxury lifestyle, with a focus on timelessness and craft rather than chasing trends, a sentiment very much shared by Matter of Form. The publication spans both print and digital, editorial and e-commerce, and across it all, captures the evolving landscape of manhood since its inception. What Harry Jarman and the team have built is a true powerhouse of luxury, balancing modernity and tradition beautifully. We're thrilled to have him join the podcast. Harry, thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Very kind introduction.
My pleasure. Harry, the first question I have to ask is, where have you been in the last 24 hours? I think everyone needs to know.
Okay, I've literally just got off the plane back from Maranello. So we've just been shooting our summer cover with Charles Leclerc, which has been amazing. Yeah, I love cars, so and Ferrari is this amazing bastion of, just the talentness and racing and everything else, and also just Enzo Ferrari, Gianni Agnelli, all these people that people that we wrote a lot about in Gentleman's Journal. So to go to this sort of story place was great. Then to interview who I think is probably one of the leading talents in the sports world, who's incredibly lovely. And we had a very short amount of time with him and had to turn around a cover that we've actually been working on for about 2.5 years. So it was really, really fun.
I mean, I'd say that's bagging the big one, but actually that's pretty consistent with the kind of people you get to interview on Gentleman's Journal, isn't it?
I mean, we try and not do the obvious. So, and we also look at what we have that year. So the previous cover to that was a guy called Anderson .Paak, who is doing amazing things. And again, it's just a bastion of cool. And so it's quite a thing to jump from him to Charles, and then we're now working on our next two, and we're trying to be different. I think that was one of the things in the men's market. They were all doing the same people. There's nothing wrong with Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio, but there's not much people just don't know about them. So I think it's kind of interesting when you actually go into different people, and again with Charles, which comes out in 2 weeks, he's grown up in Monaco, but he's not a wealthy Monegasque. His mum was a hairdresser. He grew around that, so there's a whole different story there that I don't think people know about. So yeah, it's really fun.
I think there's another subtle point you're making, which is you're not GQ or Esquire.
I'm not. We try not to be.
But I'd really love to get to how you ended up founding or starting this business or this media enterprise. However, for the uninitiated, can you just explain what Gentleman's Journal is?
So 10 years ago, it was a men's lifestyle publication, in the simplest form. In fact, what it's evolved into now is a bit more than that. We don't call ourselves essentially a media entity anymore. We call it like a platform. And, whether we have print, we have digital, we have social, we have podcasts, we have newsletters, we have a big events business. So we have all those touch points, but again, it was very much trying to, at the time, I didn't think there was a men's magazine talking to just men generally. It was like fashion magazines talking to their own crowd and talking about catwalk stuff and everything else. And we just wanted to sort of put this thing together it was just about cool stuff, really, and putting all the elements to do. And then when it came to the style front, it was wearable, cool fashion rather than just being a bit ridiculous, which I think that fashion world, sometimes they can be quite insular and talk to a reader that only exists in a very small world. So, it's a platform, and, we work with brands to tell their stories and do it over a multiple of mediums. And, that's where it's sort of got to now. But it started off very much digital publication, then went into print, and then sort of slowly grew and went in different directions with other things.
Where you've taken it to now is an incredible place, but just going back to the beginning, you're a stylish guy, obviously, but did you spend your teens and early 20s, living men's fashion or lifestyle or those things, or did you just spot an opportunity?
No, not at all. I think I was kind of interested in it. I guess I'm kind of interested in style and what that is. Everyone has their own perception over that. We look at sort of stylish guys in the past, but then there's also stylish guys now. That we have our own thing. When we were first starting out, we would draw that out in the office of who our guy was, and it's a different. Yeah, it's a hard thing to put a finger on because everyone's got their own perception on it. I guess I grew up and I was always sort of not interested in fashion or things like that, but I was interested in things and design and how things look, which is really important to us. We put a load of production into this magazine that, it's sheet thread printed and it smells nice when you open it. Costs an absolute fortune to do. But these are sort of weird things that kept the Gentleman's Journal going through all the turbulent times, because I think brands really respected that, rather than like lowering the paper quality and cutting costs. Because I guess we were 10 years old. It's not young anymore, but we were coming from a new place rather than coming from an old place. So we just kept that and very much kept down that line. So yeah, I think that the Gentleman's Journal is very much about the best of the best, and it's luxury in a different way. It doesn't have to be the most expensive. It's about finding that thing, and whether that's style or not, I just think it's about the right things and doing them in the correct way, which I think is luxury in a sort of sense.
Going back to, 12, how long is it? 12 years that you started?
It's 12 years, yeah.
There's a parallel theme here, or observation, which is you started a magazine at a time when publishing as an industry was falling off a cliff. I imagine everyone in your family or your mentors or whoever must have said, Harry, do not do this. Is that fair?
I think it is fair. I was quite naive. And I think at that age, the great thing about being young is you tend to block out the stuff that you don't want to listen to.
I still do it, actually. But yeah.
No. It's actually, I was saying this to someone the other day, it's annoying as you get older. You just realise that actually that there's a beauty about youth where you just don't listen to things. So yeah, at the time that was probably like the worst time. That was when the internet was in full force of changing things. I think it was like,
it was panic and pandemonium.
Yeah, I would say it was like 2 years after Instagram launched. The internet was probably 6 years into making an effect on the media industry. I think the big guys, the big publishers, they were slightly buried at their heads in the sand and still were claiming that it was all fine. And, we started off as an online blog and went into print, so we did the opposite. But yeah, everyone told me I was like stupid. And yeah, in hindsight, would I do it again? Probably not. No, I say that in the sense that, yeah, it was a lot more hard work than I thought it was going to be. And now it's quite nice sitting back and going, well, thank God we did that, But, we were just getting going. And then I think that was probably like year 6 when we were going, I thought it was going to be 2 years, 3 years, and we were then going to, so it took double the time that I thought it was going to do. Year 6 came and then COVID came in. So but I think I think the great thing, again, being young at that age, is perseverance. You just carry on doing it and carry on doing it. You don't really worry about much else.
Now you have a business model that's got many branches and is really sustainable and very impressive. But how much of that did you design, or how much was it just by getting going, getting out there and learning?
I think definitely I wanted to have, there was definitely I actually found the first business plan the other day, which made me laugh. But it was very much, we are slightly still on the same lines, but the design's completely different now, the feel of it. I sometimes tell the guys in the office to go back to the original format of the magazine. So sometimes when I think they've pushed the fashion too far, I'm like, who wears this stuff? Or there's stuff like that when I go, we missed something here. And that's quite hard because, you're bringing people in who have their own views and stuff like that. But, it has stuck to the same thing. And I think that's why it's now working out where we can take the brand and put it into things. So, a big thing we're looking at now is physical spaces. So that's probably like the next 2 years. you know, that was never in the original business plan, you know, but it's now going, actually, can we go and do this? We're also, you know, launching in 2 months a female version of it. So like, again, that was never in the plan. So we're now going, okay.
Stupid question. What's that going to be called?
It's going to be called Coutura, which is cult and culture put together with a K, but it's all about female entrepreneurship. So the Gentleman's Journal is all about, I would call it, I always call it the men's entrepreneurs magazine. So, you know, that's who we really focus on. Whereas the other people, our competitors in the industry, are very much style fashion magazines. So we're all about telling entrepreneurial sort of stories. And we want to go and do that in the female space. So I partnered up with a really good friend of mine who's an amazing female entrepreneur, and we put the sort of first issue together. So, which again, like, does the world need another women's magazine? You know, probably not. But then again, suddenly you go and ask a lot of women and they're bored of what they have. So, which is kind of crazy because there's so much choice out there. But apparently, you know, they're all the same. And, you know, you do a bit of market research like that on a back of a fag pack. But none of that was in the original idea. So like none of, you know, that's, and you know, it's, I think once you get to a certain scale and you work with loads of businesses and your own business, you start to go, okay, where can we push this, or what can we do?
I'd love to know the reason. In the 12 years, some things have stayed the same, and I'd say that's your take on, for example, men, or what men are interested in, or the angle on men's lifestyle or entrepreneurship, whatever it is. But you must have noticed quite a lot of differences in what everyone's wanting to read, the topics they're interested in. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, we have, but there has been fundamental things that have just stayed the same. And obviously the world's, you know, just think about everything that's happened in the last, you know, that's obviously had a massive effect on, you know, we're telling stories. So like, you know, think about what's happened in diversity alone in the last, you know, which is been an amazing thing, but can be a minefield to navigate. Or when you suddenly go and do an interview with talent and, you know, just as you're about to go out, there's a court case comes up against them or something like that. You know, that's like been a minefield and stuff. So I think, you know, it's hard to you have to do that as it goes along. You can't plan for it. So, you know, you can see that gradually change throughout the issues. There's some stuff that I'm acutely embarrassed of from the early days. Yeah. I'd just say like slightly to, you know, there's some toxic masculinity in there.
Really? Subtle or latent or?
No, just, you know, there was things about, you know, sex and relationships, which, you know, if we ever publish now, quite rightly, we'd be strung up. And it wasn't, you know, it just wasn't as bad as, you know, that back then, you know, and I think, so there's all those things that have massively changed. But, you know, I was actually with a watch brand the other day, again, remain nameless, but, you know, we're in their museum in Switzerland, and, you know, they had all their old adverts from 10 years ago, only 10 years ago. And, you know, one of their adverts said, our watches are not for women. And I was just like, and that was only 10 years ago. So like, there's a huge amount that's changed, like 100%. And like, but it's all been for the good. It's just, you have to be very, very careful about what you put out, which I would say 10 years ago, you slightly didn't, which some would say is a bit, you know, some would say is not a good thing. I would say totally is, because it pushes you to explore a whole different world. And I think, you know, we're very set in our ways in the early days, and now we go and do weird and wonderful things, you know.
Yeah, I think that comes across the range and diversity of topics. It's been funny enough that the article that I enjoyed the most of everything before this, I was just reading this morning, was the one on Volvo Estates being discontinued. So it's such a beautiful way of capturing that quite niche topic.
I mean, everyone loves that. That did like really well on social. So like, you know, I didn't know how much love there was for an old Volvo Estate, but you know,
I think those ads from the 80s were just terrific to highlight those.
But I think the other side is also like, you know, one of my favorite issues is we do a young actors, young musicians issue once a year. And that's, you know, I think the first one had James Norton in, who's now like obviously a big household name. But these are all the guys that we think are going to be the next big things. And that's really, really cool to see. Like, it sort of makes you check where the world's going, and because nowadays these guys are, you know, from everywhere and super, super talented. To a lot of the time getting younger and younger and younger, which is kind of weird. And just in terms of how quickly they see success, because now they have things like Netflix and, you know, streaming services and all of that. So, you know, that's, again, a massive thing that's changed. You know, the whole that world where it's, now you can go and have one Netflix show and end up with 7 million followers on Instagram is mad. So yeah, I think it's definitely changed for the better.
I suppose your role as founder, would you ever style yourself as an editor at large, or?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I'm severely dyslexic, so I'm not actually allowed to write anything. But the team, yeah, I probably get a bit too involved in stuff that I should.
But I'd say but surely your core skill above all else is assembling a top team of editorial talent.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, who's the editor we worked with since year 2, he's amazing, and you know, he again very much did the whole like storytelling side of it, and he's now still editor of Gentleman's Journal, to editor at large at Airmail, you know, and is doing weird and wonderful things at the moment. But yeah, the idea is they put together a flat plan, and then we go through it and we take things out and put things in. But you know, the stories that we're really trying to do take a long time to, you know, get going. We love to open it up and just find something that you don't find anywhere else.
What are, actually, out of interest, what are the kind of venerable brands in magazines or newspapers that you sort of still really admire that have been around for a while?
I mean, God, newspapers say FT. I would just say I think it's you know, truly independent, which I think is hard to be. Obviously, it's Financial Times, so it's got a big skew to the financial industry, which, you know, might be more right wing. I don't know, but I generally think, you know, speaking to, and you know, I've got to know a lot of journalists there, but you speak to them and they have these guidelines that they have to adhere to, and I think, and that allows it to be truly independent. So I would say that's you know, and now they got the FT Weekend, which, you know, is a beautiful, well crafted, put together. And I say that from newspaper front. I say, you know, magazines. There's interesting things like Airmail, which is Graydon Carter's like Second Coming, has been really, really interesting. You know, there's lots of weird and wonderful things. The Knowledge, which is like a newsletter that's, you know, just it comes into your inbox at lunchtime, full of random stuff, but really, really good. So I think there are people doing well. You know, there's still, so, you know, it's split into two. I mean, and there's those guys that have developed, and there's those guys that just haven't.
I think the one wonderful thing about the industry still is that the collegiality of a newsroom or a magazine staff, the editorship, it just must be unrepeatable in other industries. It just must be something that's very, very special.
Yeah, I mean, I think the cool thing is I always call it like mowing a lawn. I know that's a weird thing, but if you've ever mown a lawn and you made like nice stripes down it, it's quite a satisfying thing. And I think that's like, you know, when you put out an issue, you know, you put everything together, it's from scratch. And then, you know, that arrives in the office. And, you know, at the same time as arriving in the office, it's been distributed, you know, around the country and then around the globe. And, you know, we've actually brought out a new title this year called GJ, which is a mini Gentleman's Journal that we're actually distributing through all the airports. So when you go and grab those papers, you know, to get on your flight, you know, there's a mini Gentleman's Journal that's like a first step into the Gentleman's Journal world. And it's, you know, suddenly, you know, the last issue I went from, you know, getting it on my desk 2 days later, flying, and then seeing the mini one there, and it's immense amount of satisfaction. Yeah, and it is, you know, there's some issues that you go, wow, that's amazing. And you know, you look back, we've got in the office, we've got sort of 40 odd magazine covers all up on the wall, and it's you know, you feel like gratification out of having a finished product.
Do you see, I mean, it's the obvious question, but do you see print as eternally uncommoditized? Do you think with AI, etc., you're still, in 20 years' time, you're still going to be handing over that just gorgeous printed thing that people read?
Yes, I think it might be quite naive to say yes. We've actually increased our print like a load this year, and with that comes huge cost. And it's a big cost, you know, just by paper. And you know, obviously, you've got to make it work in a weird way. It's a constant question for us, and I think where we are at the moment, doing 4 issues a year, plus the small versions, so we're actually doing 8 publications a year just across Gentleman's Journal, and then we have a couple of supplements. But you know, if we didn't have the print, the luxury brands wouldn't work with us. It's kind of a weird thing. But then they're, you know, on that side, they're also reducing their print budgets. So it's a very odd situation to be in. But you know, I think there's one thing that print can do. It's digital's lean forward. So I don't know about you, but I'm a very bad person for having like tabs on my screen, and I have like by the end of the week I have probably 22 tabs. But I will come back and say I'm going to read that on Saturday. Of course, I never read it on Saturday. But I personally think a magazine costing £8, when all of that information is great value. But it's very hard to explain that to someone who gets, the Evening Standard free every evening, or goes on Vice Media or BuzzFeed and gets, is used to getting all this content, or dare I say the Daily Mail. And that's the other thing. You've got to try and find stuff that people can't find anywhere else. How does a retailer beat Amazon? Create something that they can't find on Amazon. So again, when that comes to storytelling, it's exactly the same thing.
And just going to this term, obviously at Match-Reform, we spend a lot of our time looking at luxury. We don't like the word particularly. Do you consider yourself a luxury product, a luxury lifestyle magazine?
I don't. I mean, but it does. Annoyingly, there's not another word to describe what that stuff is. So
yeah,
everyone has to use it. I mean, again, just going back to that, it's not really about price or anything. I think true luxury is time is a big effort. I was like on a flight last week, and I, just bought a brand new, I would call it a luxury suitcase brand, and spent quite a reasonable amount of money on it.
You can say, well, Ramon. No, okay, you can't. Of course, you can't. You're the one person who can't say.
I can't say that. But I bought it and I spent a lot of money on it because I had to travel quite a lot, and I was stupidly just walking with a holdall, and I was actually like, this is crazy. And then the handle came off, and I was just like, I was kind of angry because I was just like, this is crazy, and I suddenly just thought, there was the other one that I was going to go for that was half the price, but I got swayed by the brand. And I suddenly, I said, that's actually not a luxury product. It's, true luxury is where you get the price right, the product right. And when all of those things come together, that's what I call like a luxury brand. And there's a few of them. We're lucky enough to work with really, really good ones. And where I just think they get everything so right. And they are the businesses that are doing phenomenally well. That some of them are growing 30, 40% a year, and they're already established brands, which is kind of crazy.
It's interesting, but I always find as well, they're the brands that, if you're truly a great luxury brand, in inverted commas, it's actually quite gritty. This is like this contrast of what you see, and then the grit within which they look at every micro detail.
And they don't need to cover it up. So they're very proud to go and talk about it, whereas I have been on some trips where you go there and, I've actually went on one trip where they put on this like fake factory outside Florence where they claimed all their bags were made. And I was like, there's no factory that's this clean. But it actually what they were trying to do is try and do this vision, but actually everyone saw through it. You take the piss out of your customer, you're going to get the piss taken back. There's been a couple of British brands like recently, where it's not working, Burberry being one of them. And suddenly they're retreating because they're trying to become something they were never. And they forgot their core audience. So, I mean, I think we are lucky with that. We've got really cool brands, but they go into, like you say, the minute detail on absolutely everything.
It'd be interesting as well. We talked a bit about the topics and the trends that have changed over the last 10, 12 years, but in terms of your core readership, what have you noticed there in terms of them? Are they the same sort of people?
Like 4 years ago, you would have like certain demographics that you would target. I guess when the Gentleman's Journal started, luxury brands were trying to target the city guy. And, they were like, the city guy, they have money because finance back. It's actually, it's just not the case anymore. Which again is a really great thing. Much harder for brands because, the creative industry, there's a lot of people making money. Finance, there's still a lot of people making money, but there's loads of different pockets of wealth. And when those luxury brands are trying to attract them, I've been lucky enough to go on some of these customer press shows or round tables where they're having customers, and there's not a demographic anymore. It's like, it's gone.
Well, I mean, I think that's what's so interesting around, also is like interest groups, niche. I'm so interested by the podcast producers, people like Goalhanger, and for a while I was sitting there going, why are they starting another podcast? And then you realise they have this unbelievable seat at the breakfast table, of people brands just cannot reach to, and they can profile them really well and sell to them.
Yeah, I know. But I do think it's, I think that's where it's gone from targeting those things, and now brands are trying to tell like really cool stories, and that's what the customer gets behind.
Just zooming out a bit with Gentleman's Journal, where do you see it? The obvious question: where do you see it the next 5-10 years going? Is there anything really defined? You've talked about these other titles. Where do you see it going?
Carry on growing Gentleman's Journal. I would love to push into the retail aspect of it. Like brands come up to us to tell their stories and to introduce their products to clients. I think we can find a place where we can do that in a much better way, and I think that will involve some sort of physical space or retail or element of it.
When are you going to start the obvious branded residence with a hotel?
But we're going to try that. I mean, I don't want to rush into it because I've seen a lot of people fail. But that I think is we want to read it, see it, shop it is what we've sort of coined in the office. But we want to really just start taking that community off the online community and trying to bring it into physical offline space, which again is like why? But that is where everyone's going, and I think that's there's been huge brands at the moment who are just massive online who are opening up their own physical retail stores. And then with the women's side, again, all the mistakes I've made with Gentleman's Journal, hopefully don't make on that side. But I would love to have two brands that really all cater to those entrepreneurial communities and keep expanding them globally and keep building up like meaningful audiences. And I think, but yeah, that's just keep growing them. It's not like a tech company where it's going to grow like very, very quickly. But every year we increase our subscribers, we increase our audience and increase our reach. So and we're not raising money, or it's organic growth. And I also think you've got to do that to find out who you are, and you can't, especially in the media world. I don't think you can grow it fast rate and get away with it, because you've got to really work out what works.
Do you think you will always be a British brand, or do you see something beyond that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, half our audience is American, so we don't monetize that audience at the moment. So the Gentleman's Journal print will launch in September in America. That's the first time we've had print over there.
Do you need to change anything about it for America?
Yeah, like huge amount. I mean, American men's magazines are all about product, because Americans tend to buy stuff very quickly, whereas English we need to be talked to, and we do a lot more long form, they do a lot more short form. And so, it's a bit more product led over there. And, you'll start to see on the gentlemansjournal.com now, like, 10 things to do in New York, 10 things to do in LA, because we realize that we've got an audience over there that maybe they're in love with the British side. We don't know. We need to find that out. So the next 12 months is going to be like experimenting in that world. We're having various events over there. We've got an event in New York coming up, and then seeing how that goes. But it's a huge market there that already like us. And again, like over here, they're sort of pissed off with the old like media companies. They're like, these guys charge us fortunes, and we want to do something different. And so I think there is like a timing thing that is right. I would have done it earlier if it wasn't like for COVID. And we were about to do it, like I think it was March 2020. It was actually a weird blessing in disguise. Did all the firefighting for like a year and a half, and now ready to like do that again. But I think that's the next step. And then, but I went over to Japan last year. That's an amazing luxury market, unbelievable. Like Tokyo, how many people are in that city? I would love to try and do something over there, like in the future. So, but I also realize you can't do it too quickly, otherwise you'll mess up what's here. I want to keep something quintessential British about it, and I got to sound without sounding like empirist about it, but like British in a cool way. It's a cool city. That London's it's a great place, and I think there is something that resonates with certain cultures. We have a lot of Americans come over here and to see our history or whatever. But I think that's also from the style point of view. Tailoring, style rules, how to do this. A lot of countries do look to us still, and that's also becoming more relaxed. But there is still that content. We never targeted America, but yet half our web traffic completely organically has come from there, which is kind of like,
I kind of agree. I think people people can get very down on Britain or London in a sort of relative decliner sense, and I just think it's rubbish. Like still a great place to be, amazing culture and diversity and everything like that.
And it's also like, it's really in like the middle of it, whether it's, people coming over here for business, yes, we have left Europe, we're still very much part of Europe. It doesn't, obviously it's changed a lot in terms of the legalities of it, but a lot of it's so close to all those markets. All of my clients are Swiss, Italian, French, so, and that's all connected, and they're still being run as entities together.
And with Gentleman's Journal, you must have also had a couple of approaches or have thought about that. Would you ever become part of a greater media empire?
I have had a couple of, I'm not going to do it again. I mean, I did go through some processes, total waste of time. It wasn't a waste of time, but they were big entities. One was a very big entity, definitely had all the right signs and stuff for it. But, it was a 6 months process. And, then we ended up not agreeing on things that were slightly promised at the beginning of the process. And it was actually a really amazing learning experience. So from that side, it was like unbelievable. So I now look back on it with fondness. But at the time, it was just complete distraction from like growing the business.
So what makes you, someone who starts a business age 23 probably, or might also chase the shiny new thing, what keeps you getting up in the morning and excited about the next 10 years?
I love what I do. I get so much passion out of creating content and coming up with stories, doing a great story, like I talked with, Joe on many ideas, and trying to pursue something like that is a really great satisfaction out of it. I think I'm always going to stay. I love media as an entity. I think the other option would probably be hospitality. I think those are my two things that I'm passionate about. I think there's also some joining together there. There's various members clubs are now doing their own magazines, and so I think there's a whole community of stuff that are now doing that stuff. There's Airmail have got a shop here, and Chiltern Street, they got a shop in New York. So, they're leading the way on that. So
when we pitch to a hospitality client, all they want to know is about our retail clients and vice versa. It's the way the world's going, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
You can go into shops now and I think it was like Rafa who did it in the first. They were like, oh, we'll have a coffee shop in our shop. And everyone's like, okay, that's, now everyone does. And I think that's like super exciting. So I think there'll be something there that will be like, and that will become like the cool factor of like, if they can make that spot really, really shine. And I'm 100% looking at that at the moment. And we're currently writing loads of plans and stuff to do that, and working out, stuff that I've never thought I'd be doing, like footfall ratios. I didn't even understand this, but they've got ratios about how many people pass that shop front to work out if it's going to be successful or not, and things like that. So, and then also going around all the different parts of town in London, we're going to do one first place to go and take a media round to physical. Where is that place going to be? It's very hard because that will determine what it says about your brand. So yeah, I think that's really exciting at the moment.
Final question on Gentleman's Journal. Just what intrigues me actually through this whole conversation, at the core, what is it that has enabled you to always punch well above your weight? And I don't mean that in a way that's anything other than complimentary. How do you pull in these incredible people and brands, either as a subject of an article or a brand that's just amazing that wants to work with you?
Right at the beginning, we were buying stock imagery, and I remember writing to Terry O'Neill, the photographer, when I think it was Skyfall came out or something, and I said, hey, I'm 24, can I have this image of Sean Connery that you shot? And went around to his studio, had a look, and purchased this, the rights of. He did it at a completely as a favor rate to me. I'm sure he would have charged people a lot of money. But we were buying that, and then we did our first cover, and then our second cover. There was a couple of clear wins, that changed things. Like ASAP Rocky, was a huge one for us. We, and again, at the time we were quite you know, it was a big moment for us. You know, he was like just doing this like incredible thing. He was about to turn 30. He had an empire that was turning over 40 million pounds. I was like, I didn't want to know about him as the musician. I was like, hey, this guy's actually got a business empire here. And, you know, we shot him in all white Celine on a white cover with white Gentleman's Journal. It was like super design led. And then, you know, that just started to do it. So like now when we go and approach talent, they see all of this stuff and they're like, okay, well, obviously these guys have got something going for them. And I think it does take time, but, you know, you know, some of the stuff, you know, we're approaching for now, we would have laughed like 7 years ago. We would have just gone like, there's no way we're going to get that. And also with talent, the guys that you think are going to be really nice are normally the arseholes. And the arseholes that you think are going to be arseholes are lovely. So like, you know, you get to see all sorts.
If there was a standout interview or topic that you've covered, which would it be?
Yeah, so many. You know, ASAP Rocky again was great. I mean, there was, you know, we spent a day with James Dyson. That was super interesting. And we went in when he did his new HQ with a fighter pilot in it. We had a documentary photographer go around and do all of that.
Is he a mad professor type, or is he?
Yeah, just you know, interesting. Doing stuff with Paul Smith, you know, like going to his office, and you know, people like really respect. You know, like Paul Smith owns pretty much 100% of his company. You know, he through COVID he kept everything going. You know, these are proper owner operator people that, you know, just take your hat off to you and you go, how have you done it? You know, all of those sort of stories are great. And we want to start doing a lot more of that. You know, a big thing is now to push more into film and do like little short documentary films. But, you know, all of those entrepreneurial guys have just been like trying to tell those stories in a really different way. You know, again, like Ben Francis, who started Gymshark, youngest billionaire in the country. You know, these are really amazing like people, and they are on a different, you know, they are made differently. There's no doubt about it.
And the fish you haven't yet landed that you'd like to land?
Oh God, I mean, like I would love to do like Elon Musk. I think would be amazing. I mean, I read his autobiography recently, and just like, you know, and again, like in this autobiography, you had people like Steve Jobs and all these people like giving their thoughts, and Bill Gates giving their thoughts on this person that, you know, essentially is probably the biggest sort of change maker of our generation, and you know, and also incredibly complex human being. You know, like, you know, from all intents and purposes, doesn't sound like a very nice person to work for, but he has got an amazing amount of stuff done. So like, you know, people like that I would love to do. I then again, you know, I think from the celebrity angle, it's finding those, you know, celebrities that have, I think the really fascinating is the guys who've gone for it really young and sort of come out the other side, and then now at this reflective moment. We've got some really amazing people lined up, and some are like icons and some are new. And then also like, it's not being afraid to do the social media element. Social media is a big thing. And like, you know, I remember like after COVID, we did Francis Bourgeois, the train spotting guy. You know, the cover before that was Matthew McConaughey, and then we did a cover with him, and it was at this moment when he was just blowing up, and because everyone's at home looking at their phones, and it got way more traction than Matthew McConaughey. So you sort of have to go, okay, well, we need to do that again, because that's interesting. And it's kind of funny, you know, like you go from Matthew McConaughey to a guy who's a train spotter, and everyone's like, what are you doing? But, you know, now he's been courted by Gucci and brands like that. So that's kind of, yeah, super interesting.
Harry, thank you very much. But we can't let you leave without 4 outro questions. We ask these to everyone on the podcast. The first is, what most irritates you about your industry?
I would say pace of change is incredibly slow when it should be incredibly fast. I say that from the brand's point of view as well. I get frustrated. You know, there's certain brands that, you know, have been working with. I feel this, I would say this is the competitor, but I'm like, why are you giving your money to these guys? You know, they've done the same thing for the last 10 years. You know, it's always like, I get why they do it, because the marketing director is friends with the editor, and they sign up, but you know, they're not getting any value from it. So like, I think that's a pet hate. And I always see as the guy who's trying to expand his business, you know, and it feels like I can do a better job. But you know, I think that's, you know, luxury is very slow. Everything likes to be very comfortable. No one likes to break anything. And there's a reason for it, because people have to have reputations to for debt. But I wish there would be, I wish there was a few more risk takers in the luxury world that would change things up again.
Yeah, I'd say we agree with that very much. Second question, what most concerns you about the world we're leaving the next generation?
I mean, it's obvious one, but I would just say climate change, really. But I think, no, and I think this is actually really important to the luxury industry because, there is a massive problem, with waste and everything else. And, I think everyone's sort of still, we have this attitude of pass it down, don't worry about it, it'll be fine. I think everyone's got to wake up and go 10 times faster. So that's a big thing. But there's rare hope and stuff, and there is actually brands that are taking it massively seriously. And when you go to those brands and you actually see, the detail they're going to, one's a brand we work with, Polestar Cars, just in terms of their supply line. They have this head of sustainability there called Frederica, and just they're literally going through every single thing, not only for their own brand, but also their suppliers. And, you can't work with that brand unless, because they want to become completely carbon neutral, in a short amount of time. So I think that's good. But I think ultimately there's a load of brands that don't care. And we have to be we also as a media entity had to be really, because essentially we are a consumer title. So we have a part to play in that. And sometimes we don't get it right. We also are luxury things where people like to buy things that they just like. So I can understand this conflict there.
And that's okay if they hold them for 30 years and give them to their kids.
Yeah, but that's good. A prime example is Crockett & Jones shoe company, family owned, never put their prices up. And the same Crockett & Jones Genie, they're both family owned, turn over a load of money. But, I said what we need to do in communicating this brand is actually buying a pair of their shoes will last you 10 years. Whereas you go down to office, those shoes they last a year. So actually, it is £390, £400 to buy your shoes, and it's £100 from office, but that's going to last twice as long. That's the message you got to go and tell people. And again, they've started making, they used to throw away their offcuts, and now they started making small leather belts and stuff. So and that's a business that's hundreds of years old. So that's if they're changing, you're okay, well that's kind of cool.
Penultimate question. If you had to give up your job tomorrow, what would you do?
I touched on it earlier, but I would say hospitality.
Yeah, you'd be a hotelier.
I don't know what would be a hotelier. I mean,
would you be a GM or would you be in the kitchen? Or
I love the conception of coming up with stuff. I think again it comes back to storytelling, and it's a bit like Jeremy King's prime example. He's amazing, famous thing. But we actually had him on our podcast just talking about how he envisages the concept of it. And now, when I listened to it, I actually went into some of his establishments and I was like, bang, I get it. So I know, I think I love the service element of it. And we do we do these big events. We got one in 2 weeks' time, which is a Around Wilderness Festival, and it's a lunch for 120 odd people. And it's a production, it's a beautiful day and that. So I think, again, there is a crossover, but I would love to do hospitality. Hopefully, where we're going might merge the two. I don't know.
Maybe this touches on the last question, which is, for you personally, what's the most exciting thing coming up in the next 5 years?
I would say the most exciting thing is we're at this stage now where I feel like we're just getting going, which is kind of ironic because it's now not a young business. It's been around for 12 odd years. But I would say we're also at this time where we're looking at going abroad. We're looking at adding titles, so I'm just excited to see where all they go. I can't imagine they're all gonna. There's going to be points that some of them aren't as successful as they should have been, or there might be a stumbling block, or there might be that. But I think that's just seeing where that goes, and I think America as well. I'm just keen to go and see what it's about, but also be careful. Yeah, can't rush into it. But yeah, just I guess just seeing where all these ideas come from and then where they go.
Brilliant. Harry, thank you so much. That was great.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thanks so much for listening. This has been What the Luxe. You can find us on socials at @Reform and drop us any questions or comments on Twitter using the hashtag #WhatTheLuxe. Or if you're a luxury brand looking for strategy and design that goes beyond the banal, get in touch via hello@matchreform.com and chat to one of our consultants.